You're in a relationship with someone you love, and somewhere along the way, you disappeared. Not all at once. Slowly, you stopped saying what you actually think. You started saying, "I'm fine," when you weren't. You got really good at scanning the room before you spoke. And now you can't remember the last time you really said what you wanted without qualifying it, explaining it, or justifying it. That's what fawning looks like in relationships. It erases you slowly, quietly, until you hardly notice it's happening. I'm Nicole. I'm a therapist, and I want to talk about how this happens and why it can be very challenging to stop. It starts really small. Your partner says something dismissive, not cruel, just dismissive, and you notice it. You feel something in your body. But instead of saying, "Hey, that didn't feel great," you do this thing. You pause, you assess. Is this worth bringing up? Will they get upset if I do? Am I being too sensitive? And in that pause, you make a choice. You let it go. Because in that moment, it feels easier, less risky. You tell yourself, it's not that big of a deal. But here's what's actually happening in the moment. Your nervous system is running a calculation. It's asking, what is easier and safer? Speaking up or just staying quiet and letting it go? And if your nervous system learned very early on that conflict meant danger, that your needs were too much, or that love was conditional, being very easygoing, then staying quiet wins every time. So you smooth it over. You make an excuse for them. You tell yourself a story about why it's fine. And that moment, that's where fawning begins. Not with one big betrayal, but with 1,000 tiny accommodations that teach your nervous system your voice isn't safe here. Over time, fawning becomes your default. You stop noticing you're doing it. Someone asks what you want to do, and you genuinely don't know because you've spent so long figuring out what they want that your preferences disappeared. You over-explain everything. I can't make it because I have this thing, and also I'm really tired, and I don't want you to think I'm blowing you off, and on and on. You're not declining. You're truly justifying your existence. You walk on eggshells. You're really good at observing the tone around you and the mood before you speak. You rehearse conversations in your head. You stay up in the middle of the night scrutinizing what you said, wondering if you upset someone, trying to figure out how to say something frequently without causing a wave. And the hardest part is that from the outside, you likely look really okay. Easygoing, low maintenance, agreeable, dependable. But inside, you're carrying so much resentment you don't even know where to put it. Because you're not actually fine. You're performing fine, and your body knows the difference. So why does fawning show up most in closest relationships, particularly romantic ones? Closeness raises the stakes. When you love someone, when you depend on them, your nervous system registers, I cannot afford to lose this person. And if your body learned that conflict can often equal danger, then speaking up leads to abandonment, then intimacy becomes terrifying because now you're vulnerable, you care, and vulnerability means risk. So fawning becomes protection. Your nervous system says, don't rock the boat, don't need too much, stay small, make things easy, and that's how you'll remain loved and protected. That's how I'll maintain this relationship. Except that's not love, that's survival. And the cruel irony is this. The more you fawn, the more you lose yourself. And the more you lose yourself, the less connected you feel, even though you're doing all of this to stay connected. You end up feeling very lonely in the relationship. Not because they actually left, but because you've abandoned yourself. So what do? First, notice when it's happening. And yes, I'm going to say notice a lot right now. Notice when you say, I'm fine, when you're not. Notice when you apologize for something when you haven't done anything wrong. Notice when your body tenses because you're scared of their reaction. Notice when you're practicing what you're going to say in your mind in order to avoid conflict. Just noticing is huge because fawning is automatic, so bringing awareness to it really can help, and it's one of the first steps. Second, understand that this is likely a relational trauma. Your body learned in past relationships that it wasn't really okay to speak up, that your needs were too much, that love was conditional on you saying the things and being a certain way. And now, even in a potentially safe relationship, your body is still running that old program. Third, this is where therapy helps. Work on it because we can work on healing the nervous system. Because sometimes we can't just decide to stop fawning. Your body has to learn that it's safe to speak up, safe to need things, safe to disagree. And in therapy, we don't just talk about boundaries and create scripts. We help your nervous system feel safe enough to actually set them. Using EMDR, we process the experiences that wired fawning as your default, so your body learns to stop reacting to conflict like it's life-threatening. Using ACT, we help you step back from the fear and the guilt and reconnect with what actually matters to you. And over time, you start to notice you can speak up more easily and without spiraling. You're able to set a boundary without going into panic. You stop disappearing in your relationships. Fawning in relationships is one of the hardest patterns to shift because it's where we're most vulnerable, where we have the most to lose. And it's also where healing matters the most. If any of this sounded like something you can relate to, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you want to explore this work together, I offer a free consultation. I'll link that in the description, along with a little bit about how I work. Thank you so much for watching.